It is the last week of the regular season.
Mm.
Week 14 of college football. Let's start in College Station. Texas, Texas A&M. Ted, the rivalry is renewed, and my goodness, is there a lot on the line?
It's all on the line, right? Everything. I mean, conference championship, playoff, perhaps for both teams. And when you get there, who knows what's going to happen? Yeah, there's been, I mean, the build up for this one has been years in the making, but whenever, the season unfolded, it's looks like, okay, we got ourselves two football teams here. Like, not only is it going to be a rivalry, this may have something on the line. I mean, this is what you wanted for it, man. It's going to be awesome.
Number 3 Texas versus number 20 Texas A&M. 6:30 p.m. on ABC. Texas is currently a 5.5 point favorite. And typically going into a big game, you always look at head coach and quarterback. And it's hard not to like Texas after going through that exercise. Yours isn't perfect, but he's got a much larger body of work than Marcel Reed. And even as much as we like Mike Elko, you got to give Sarkeesian the advantage there. And I also, out of all the units in the game, I think I trust Texas's defense the most. They've been
Being really good.
rock solid. So I like Texas's head coach, quarterback, and I like their defense the best in the game. Why am I so uncomfortable picking them to win?
Um, because they haven't really had any adversity. I mean, I know they lost the Georgia game, but outside of that, they're just, I guess they're not very battle tested. You know, the Arkansas game was fairly close for a big portion. The Vanderbilt game was close, but outside of the Georgia game, they haven't really been drug into the deep water. Now, is A&M necessarily the team to do that? I don't know, but that's why it's hard for me to just say, don't overthink it. It's Texas. Um, you got to remember the biggest game they've been in, the Georgia game, their quarterback got benched. You know, Ewers got benched in that game. So I don't know. I feel pretty strongly that Texas is the better football team, but that doesn't always mean you're going to win the football game. So I think that's just kind of where the struggle is a little bit.
I think Texas is the better team. I think they're the more complete team, but I also think that it is going to be crazy, crazy at Kyle Field on Saturday.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that is going to be an elite atmosphere, even though they're coming off a loss. I think A&M fans will have already erased that from their memory, and they can only see red because Texas is coming to town. And I think the key to the game for A&M, you got to slow down Texas's run game and the layups for Ewers. If you can slow down the run game and the quicks and the bubbles, and you can force Ewers to play from the pocket, second and long, third and medium to long, like that's the formula for A&M, but that's not easy, Ted, because Texas has some really talented guys that Steve Sarkeesian gets the ball in space. Does
Yeah.
it, and he does a masterful job of getting those guys easy catches in space.
Yeah. No, it's true. I guess my biggest question, or I maybe not question, matchup I'm looking forward to is A&M's defensive line against Texas's offensive line. Um, both really good groups. Ewers is, I mean, he can move around he's not a statue back there, but if you start to get pressure on Quinn Ewers, he becomes average really, really quickly. He doesn't have some of the tools some of these other quarterbacks have out there that sometimes when you pressure him, you may put yourself in a bad spot whenever they get outside the pocket or make a guy miss. So, like to me, if Texas' offensive line can hold up against that defensive line, um, I mean, that's going to be very hard for A&M to overcome, in my opinion. If
This
that's not a
is
decisive like edge for them.
this is a redemption opportunity for Texas's offensive line. They've had it feels like forever ago that they beat Michigan. And they played well against a really good defensive line for Michigan. But since then they've had one marquee game and they got embarrassed.
Yep.
They got straight up whooped. So Kelvin Banks, Jake Majors, Cam Williams, like this group has the opportunity to prove what it's all about. The entire country is going to be watching this game. And what are they going to put on tape? Because they have the opportunity to change the way that people talk about them and the way that people are thinking about them. Because a lot of people, when they think about this offensive line right now, the first thing they think of is how it went against Georgia.
Yeah.
They've got a great opportunity to change the discussion around them. And I'm very interested to see how they play because Scorton, Stewart, like Texas A&M's got dudes.
Yep.
It's not going to be easy, but I have to imagine that offensive line for Texas is ultra motivated to go and play well in this game.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm. It's hard to know. I think Marcel Reed's going to have to make some crazy plays with his legs. They're going to have to hit on some chunk plays down the field. Defensive line is going to have to shut down the running game and get to Ewers and force him into some mistakes. He'll make mistakes if he's under pressure. So I don't know. It would do A&M a lot of good if they were able somehow to jump out to a lead. However they get there with the crowd behind them and everything, that would they need the crowd engaged the entire game.
I like the Longhorns. What do you think?
I don't know. It's so hard because I would probably take A&M in the six in plus the six. Um, I'd probably favor Texas to win the game. I'm curious to see how Texas I they just haven't really been punched in the mouth other than by Georgia, and they couldn't answer the bell. So I'm curious to see how they respond there. But like on paper, it says Texas, right? But we'll see. We'll see if A&M, like I said, can drag them into the deep water.
I'm excited for that game.
Yeah. Too bad it's going to be going on while ours is.
DVR's already set, baby.
Yeah.
Already set. Let's move to the state of South Carolina, shall we? South Carolina, what number 15 South Carolina traveling to number 12 Clemson. 11 a.m. Central kickoff for this one. Clemson is currently a 2.5 point favorite. And I think it could be this simple. Which team runs the ball better? Is it the combo of Lenore Sellers and Rocket Sanders, or is it Phil Maffa and Cade Klubnik? And now Klubnik's he's an athletic guy. He's not exactly the weapon. I don't think he has the strength that Sellers has, but he's got some wiggle to him. But I think both teams are really going to want to emphasize running the football in this game. And I kind of lean towards South Carolina's combination in that matchup, even though I think Maffa's a really good player.
Yeah. Um, Give me South Carolina.
We both really like South Carolina.
I'm shocked that Clemson's favored in this game.
Who do you think has the better quarterback? Klubnik has been pretty solid this year.
Yeah, but he's been solid against Citadel and Pitt and Virginia Tech. And you know, nothing against those teams, but the schedule Clemson's had to go or South Carolina's had to go against is really tough. They are battle hardened. They've played the best of the best, and Clemson hasn't seen anything like South Carolina's defensive line. Nothing close to it. And Clemson is I haven't really dug in on what their offensive line is like this year. I know it's improved, but they've had I mean, it's been a big problem area for them over the last couple of years. Um, I don't know. Sellers statistically may not match up with Klubnik, but he's missed a little bit of time. He's gaining experience and getting better as he goes. And I mean, I feel the same with Sanders. I don't know. Maybe I'm already SEC biased, I guess.
It's it's just hard to pick against South Carolina after seeing that team in person.
Yeah.
It's a good looking football team. It just is. Now, I do think South Carolina's offensive line against a solid Clemson defensive line, that's a big time matchup. But if this game was in Columbia, I'd have zero hesitation picking the Gamecocks to win. But it's not. And there's a ton on the line for Clemson now that they're ranked 12th. I also have a little hesitation after watching Brady Cook and Missouri move the football the way that they did against that South Carolina defense. That was one where I watched it and went, that's interesting. But yeah, I'm with you, man. Give me South Carolina. And maybe it's just because I love Shane Beamer. Maybe that's it.
Easy to root for.
Easy to root for. But Clemson, clearly they got to win this game. They need Miami to lose at Syracuse to make the ACC title game against SMU. But if they win convincingly in this one, even if Miami wins, like I think they'll be in. Like if they handle South Carolina, they win, by a touchdown or by 10 points and they look good doing it. I think they'll be in the playoff, which is a very interesting scenario. And I'm not sure South Carolina, chaos is very possible. We just saw it last week, but what if South Carolina beats Clemson by like 17? Just smokes them,
Yeah.
3-score game.
I don't know. I mean, I just I I like teams that are battle hardened, and Clemson's played one top 25 team, Georgia, early, and they got handled, but
How'd that one go?
did not go well.
Bloodbath.
South Carolina's played one, two, three, four, five top 25 teams when they played the game. And, they played well in all of them except for the Ole Miss game, right? Ole Miss got them, and that can happen with Ole Miss. But I know more about their roster, but I feel like the majority of the better players are on South Carolina's team.
I really am just wondering how bad South Carolina has to beat Clemson to get into the playoff.
I know.
And I have to assume that's a discussion that's taking place within those walls for South Carolina. Like, hey, guys, we got to go make a statement. And I think that creates a very interesting dynamic for this game.
Well, the one thing that has hurt South Carolina is at one time it looked fantastic, but, they lost to LSU. LSU season's kind of falling apart. They lost to Ole Miss. Ole Miss just took another loss outside looking in. Lost to Alabama. Alabama just got beat by Oklahoma. So they had the big win against A&M. A&M, just got beat on the road by Auburn. So, I mean, it does feel like even though they haven't really done anything wrong, they've won 5 straight. It does feel like maybe their star has faded a little bit with some of their wins that they've had.
We both like South Carolina, though.
Yep.
Yep. Any other rivalry game tickle your fancy, Ted? We've got Georgia Tech at Georgia. There's the Egg Bowl, Michigan at Ohio State. I mean, I can't believe how insignificant that game feels.
And after hearing Ryan Day, I how hard it's been on him, I'm like, I want him to win. Don't lose it this year. Do
When he said
not lose
it's
it
the
this
hardest
year.
thing other than losing his father.
Unbelievable. Unbelievable.
You know what? I loved it. I want my football coach invested like
Yeah.
that. I just call me crazy, but I loved it. We've got
Yeah.
the Iron Bowl. We've got Notre Dame at USC, Arizona State at Arizona. We've got Farmageddon in Ames. What do you like? Which one stands out to you?
I like all of them. The Iowa State Kansas State one, there's a lot on the line in that one. Everyone in the Big 12 it has a lot on the line right now. I'm interested in the Iron Bowl. Now, I it's pretty wild that, where Auburn is, but they just got that nice win at home. Alabama's kind of limping home. Do you know that Alabama has never beat Auburn in Tuscaloosa without Nick Saban as the coach?
That's no, that is news to me.
Never. Because they used to play it at like in Birmingham or somewhere. Is that where it is? And then they moved it. They played 6 other times other than when Saban's coaching, and they're 0-6 in those games. Interesting. But, after taking that loss and how things have gone, just wonder where their head is right now. Um, I don't know. There's a bunch of interesting games out there.
Notre Dame USC is the most interesting to me.
Yeah.
It's everything's on the line for Notre Dame. And even though USC has had a very disappointing season, it somehow feels like a lot's on the line for USC to me.
Yeah.
And it's mainly, I think the main thing that's on the line is like just how mad are USC fans going to be at Lincoln Riley?
A win would go a long way for him right now.
Yeah, it would go a long way. I think it would mean a ton to that fan base, and it feels like USC really needs it, and it's obvious why Notre Dame needs it. You win this game, you're in the college football playoff. And while I don't think USC is a very good football team this year, they are capable of beating Notre Dame if Notre Dame does not show up at the Coliseum and play well.
Yeah.
And that makes it a really interesting game to me. And especially you've got Riley Leonard playing really good football. I have to assume that Marcus Freeman and every guy on that team, though, wants to show up, lock the gates at the Coliseum, and just mush the Trojans.
Yeah. They're going to try and send a message for sure.
But Jaden Mayava, you got a young quarterback that's taken over at USC. He's been okay. He's been solid, but he hadn't seen anything like the Notre Dame defense.
No.
So there are a lot of fun.
They played Michigan early. Michigan's defense is, that star has faded quite a bit, but they've got players. Penn State's defense is good, and they played them in a really tight game. But yeah, it'd be interesting to see how Maeva handles it. The pressure's on Notre Dame.
Is it?
Yeah.
Part of me feels like if USC gets beat, like if USC gets embarrassed, that there's a very interesting conversation that takes place there.
Yeah.
But I don't know if you categorize that as pressure. Clearly, the game's more important for Notre Dame.
Right.
Because of what's on the line for their postseason.
USC, they've taken their lumps, man. They lost 5 out of 7 games in the middle stretch of the season. Um, like once you get over that, like once you go through that, like the threat of losing another game isn't nearly as bad, you know?
You're just like, it's fine.
I just, I kind of feel like they're in a position, and I don't know the dynamics there, but where you could just kind of go out and play free and see what happens. Um, we'll see.
I
Give me
like
Notre
Notre
Dame.
Dame. Yeah, give me Notre Dame. All right.